Marcus Webb was hauling water from the well when he saw the dust rising from the eastern trail. 7 riders, moving fast but controlled, which meant they were either Apache scouts or men who'd learned to move like them. Either way, trouble was coming to his ranch whether he wanted it or not. He set down the bucket and walked to the cabin, not running, just moving with the kind of deliberate calm that came from knowing panic got men killed. Inside, he went straight to the back room and knocked twice on the floor. A hidden panel lifted, and a woman's face appeared in the gap. "Nolan, 7 riders coming. Apache, get Kaya into the deep cellar. Stay there no matter what you hear." She nodded once and disappeared. The panel closed. Marcus heard the interior bolt slide into place. 3 months of preparation weren't wasted. Everything he'd built since finding them in that ravine was about to be tested. He grabbed his Winchester and stepped back outside. The riders were close enough now that he could see their faces. Warriors, yes, but something was wrong with the picture. They rode like men being chased, but their formation was too deliberate, too controlled for panic. These weren't refugees running blind. These were soldiers retreating according to plan. The lead rider raised his hand, and the group halted 30 yards from Marcus's fence. The warrior was older, maybe 50, with gray streaking his long black hair and scars that told stories Marcus didn't need to hear. Behind him, the other 6 spread into a loose formation that looked casual but controlled every angle of approach. "You are Marcus Webb," the older warrior said in clear English. "Not a question. I am Closen. We need refuge for 3 days. Maybe 4. After that, we leave and you never see us again." Marcus studied the 7 faces. 2 had fresh bandages. Another had blood on his shirt that was still wet. "Cavalry chasing you." "Not cavalry. Worse." Closen's expression didn't change. "Men who wear no uniform but carry government papers. Men who take Apache women and children and sell them south. We have been hunting them for 6 months. Now they hunt us." Marcus felt something cold settle in his stomach. He knew about the slavers. Had been tracking their operation for 3 months, ever since he'd found Nolan shot and left for dead with Kaya starving beside her. But he'd been working alone, gathering evidence, planning to take it to the territorial marshal when he had enough proof. "How many are following you?" 15, maybe 20, led by a man named Garrett. He has been operating in this territory for 2 years. He knows we are close to exposing him, so he has decided to eliminate witnesses. One of the younger warriors moved his horse closer. His eyes locked on something near Marcus's barn. Marcus turned his head slightly and saw what the warrior had noticed. A child's wooden toy, half hidden in the dirt where Kaya had left it 2 days ago when Marcus wasn't watching. "You have child," the young warrior said. His voice held tension that hadn't been there before. "Had," Marcus lied. "Daughter died 4 years back. Fever took her and my wife both." The young warrior stared at him for a long moment. Then he dismounted and walked toward the toy, moving with the controlled intensity of a man approaching something that might explode. He picked it up, turned it over in his hands, and Marcus saw his face change. Saw recognition, then something that looked like hope mixed with agony. "This toy," the warrior said, his voice shaking. "My daughter had one like this. Exactly like this. My wife made it before." He stopped, unable to finish. Marcus's heart was pounding. The toy was distinctive, carved with specific patterns that marked it as coming from one particular Apache family line. Nolan had told him about it, how her husband Tarak had carved it, how it was the only thing she'd managed to save when the slavers attacked their camp. Before Marcus could respond, the sound of horses carried across the valley. Multiple riders, coming from the south. Not the cautious approach of scouts, but the aggressive pace of men who thought they had their prey cornered. Closen's head snapped toward the sound. "Garrett's men. They are closer than I thought." He looked at Marcus. "We need to move. Now, is there another way out of this valley?" Marcus made his decision. "Follow me, but stay quiet and do exactly what I say." He led them at a run toward the barn, not to hide there but to pass through it to what lay beyond. The warriors followed, leading their horses with practiced silence. As they moved through the barn, Marcus pulled open a hidden panel in the back wall, revealing a narrow passage that led down into darkness. This tunnel runs 300 yards into the ravine, Marcus said quickly. There's a cave system at the end. You can hide there while I deal with whoever's coming. You would help us. Closen studied Marcus with those measuring eyes. You risk your life for strangers. I'm risking my life because Garrett's men are the same bastards who've been terrorizing this whole territory. Marcus gestured toward the tunnel. Move. I'll buy you time. But Tarak hadn't moved. He was staring at Marcus, still holding the toy. Where did you really get this? The sound of approaching horses was getting louder. Marcus could hear voices now, men calling to each other, coordinating their approach. He had maybe 3 minutes before they reached the ranch. That tunnel, Marcus said, not to Tarak but to Closen, goes past my supply room. When you get there, you'll understand everything. Now move before those bastards trap us all. The warriors filed into the tunnel. Tarak last, his eyes never leaving Marcus's face. As soon as they were through, Marcus closed the hidden panel and walked back outside, trying to control his breathing, trying to look like a man who'd been doing nothing more suspicious than morning chores. The riders came thundering into his yard, 15 men on horseback, every one of them armed with the casual arrogance of men who'd never faced real consequence. At their head rode a man Marcus recognized from wanted posters, though no official law seemed interested in enforcing those warrants. Jack Garrett, a former Army scout turned slaver who'd built his operation on government indifference and frontier isolation. Garrett reined in his horse 10 feet from Marcus's porch. He was younger than Marcus expected, maybe 35, with the kind of handsome features that probably helped him talk his way past questions. But his eyes held the flat calculation of a man who'd killed enough times that it no longer registered as remarkable. Morning, Garrett called out, his voice friendly in a way that felt like a threat. Sorry to disturb you so early, but we're tracking some dangerous fugitives. 7 Apache warriors. Killed 3 settlers down near the border. You seen anyone come through here? Marcus kept his rifle pointed down but ready. Haven't seen anyone in 2 weeks. It's just me out here. Garrett smiled, but the expression didn't reach his eyes. That's interesting. See, we tracked them straight to your property. Clear as day. 7 horses, all unshod, Apache style. He gestured toward Marcus's fence line. Tracks lead right to your barn and then nothing. Almost like they vanished. Maybe they circled around, Marcus said. Headed up into the high country. Plenty of places to lose a trail up there. Maybe. Garrett dismounted slowly, deliberately. But we should probably search your property. Just to be thorough. I'm sure you understand. Marcus had prepared for this moment, had thought through every response, every contingency. But he hadn't accounted for what happened next. One of Garrett's men, a thin man with nervous energy, dismounted near the well and happened to look down into the water. His face changed. He reached down and pulled something up with the bucket. A leather water pouch, distinctly Apache in design, still dripping wet. Boss, the thin man called. Found something. Garrett walked over and took the pouch, turning it over in his hands. When he looked back at Marcus, his friendly expression had vanished completely. You want to tell me why there's fresh Apache gear in your well? Marcus's mind raced. The pouch must have fallen from one of the warriors' belts when they'd watered their horses earlier. A stupid mistake, the kind that got people killed. Found that last week, Marcus said. Some travelers came through, traded for food. Must have dropped it. Last week. Garrett pulled the pouch open and water poured out. This leather's still wet on the inside. Been in water maybe 10 minutes. So either you're lying to me, or you've got the worst memory I've ever seen. He signaled to his men. Search everything. Barn, cabin, property line. If those warriors are here, I want them found. And if this ranch has been harboring them. He looked at Marcus with cold promise. Well, we'll deal with that too. If you were Marcus Webb, what would you do now? The tunnel takes 15 minutes to navigate. The warriors aren't even halfway through yet. Garrett's men are about to search everything, including the barn with the hidden panel. Tell me in the comments, do you fight and buy them time, or do you try to talk your way out and risk Garrett finding the tunnel? Marcus had maybe 30 seconds before Garrett's men spread out and discovered everything. 30 seconds to decide if he was going to watch innocent people die, or if he was finally going to become the man Sarah always believed he could be. He made his choice. "I need to show you something," Marcus said to Garrett. "In my cabin. Something you're going to want to see before your men tear this place apart." Garrett studied him with cold calculation. "This better not be you reaching for another weapon." "It's not." Marcus lowered his rifle slowly, setting it against the porch rail. "It's evidence. Names, routes, dates. Everything someone would need to destroy a slaving operation from the inside out." For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Garrett's face. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about 3 months of investigation," Marcus said. "I'm talking about proof that you and your men have been taking Apache families and selling them south. I'm talking about enough documentation to hang you and every man riding with you." Garrett's hand moved toward his revolver. "You're bluffing." "Maybe I am," Marcus said. "Or maybe I've been working for the territorial marshal this whole time, and you just walked into a trap. Your choice, Garrett. Come inside and see what I've got, or start shooting and find out the hard way when federal investigators show up tomorrow." It was a complete lie. Marcus wasn't working for anyone, but he was gambling that Garrett's paranoia would override his instincts. Gambling that a man who'd built his operation on secrets and silence would need to know what evidence existed before he started killing. Garrett signaled his men to hold position. "Show me." Marcus walked toward his cabin, hyper-aware that Garrett was following 3 steps behind with his hand on his revolver. Every step bought the warriors time to get deeper into the tunnel. Every second of delay moved them closer to the cave where they could defend themselves if it came to that. Inside the cabin, Marcus went straight to his desk and pulled out a thick folder. It was real evidence, gathered over 3 months of careful investigation. Names of men involved in the slaving operation. Routes they used. Places where families were being held. Everything he'd been planning to take to Fort Bliss when he had enough to make a case. Garrett grabbed the folder and started reading. His face went pale as he flipped through pages. "Where did you get this?" "Tracked it piece by piece," Marcus said. "Every time you took a family, you left traces. People talk, Garrett. Even the ones you pay off get nervous after a while." Garrett's hand was shaking now, rage and fear mixing. "Who else has seen this?" "Just me. So far." "So far." Garrett looked up, and Marcus saw murder in his eyes. "That's convenient. Kill you, burn this place, and all your evidence goes up in smoke." "Except I already sent copies to Fort Bliss," Marcus lied. 3 days ago. "If I don't check in with Major Harrison by Friday, he opens them. So shooting me just speeds up your hanging." It was another bluff, but Garrett couldn't know that. The slaver stood frozen, calculating odds, weighing options. Behind him, through the window, Marcus could see Garrett's men spreading out across the property. One of them was walking toward the barn. Time was running out. "You've got a choice," Marcus said quietly. "Take your men and run. Get across the border before Friday. Maybe you make it to Mexico before the army catches up. Or stay here, kill me, and guarantee federal investigators come looking." Garrett's revolver was out now, pointed at Marcus's chest. "Or I could kill you, burn your cabin, and take my chances that you're lying about those copies." "You could," Marcus agreed. "But are you willing to bet your life on it?" The 2 men stood facing each other across 6 feet of floor space. Outside, one of Garrett's men was at the barn door now, pulling it open. In seconds, he'd search inside. In minutes, he might find the hidden panel. And then, from somewhere deep underground, came a sound that changed everything. A child's cry, muffled but unmistakable, echoing up through the floorboards from the cellar where Nolan and Kaya were hiding. Garrett's eyes widened. "You said you had no family." Marcus felt time compress. The lie was over. Garrett knew he was hiding someone. In seconds, the slaver would figure out it wasn't just warriors in that tunnel. There was a woman and child. Exactly the kind of merchandise his operation trafficked. "How much?" Garrett said softly. "For the woman and child. I'll forget about the warriors. Forget about this evidence. Name your price." And in that moment, Marcus understood that every choice he'd made for 3 months had been leading to this. Every day he'd hidden Nolan and Kaya, every lie he'd told in town, Every preparation he'd made, it was all culminating in this single moment where he either became the man who sold human beings or the man who fought for them. "My price," Marcus said quietly, "is that you walk away right now and never come back." Garrett's laugh was ugly. "That's not how this works." "Then let me show you how it works." Marcus kicked the desk forward, slamming it into Garrett's legs. The slaver stumbled back, his shot going wild, blowing a hole in the ceiling. Marcus was already moving, diving for his rifle on the porch. He grabbed it, spun, and fired through the doorway just as Garrett was raising his revolver again. The shot caught Garrett in the shoulder, spinning him around. He crashed into the wall, blood spreading across his shirt. Outside, his men were shouting, running toward the cabin. Marcus had maybe 10 seconds before they reached him. He ran to the back room and pounded on the floor. "Nolan, get to the tunnel entrance. Take Kaya and run." Then he was moving through the cabin, overturning furniture, creating barricades. Garrett was trying to crawl toward the door, leaving a blood trail. Marcus grabbed him by the collar and dragged him to the window where his men could see. "Your boss is shot," Marcus shouted. "He needs a doctor. Take him and get out." But Garrett's second in command, the thin, nervous man from earlier, was already in position with his rifle. "Kill him. Get Garrett out and kill everyone in that cabin." Bullets smashed through the windows. Marcus dropped flat, pulling Garrett down with him. The slaver was bleeding badly now, his face gray with shock. "Call them off," Marcus said, "or you bleed out right here." Garrett tried to speak, coughed blood instead. His eyes rolled back. He was dying, and his men were still shooting. And somewhere underground the warriors were trapped in a tunnel with no way to know what was happening above. If you're enjoying the story, subscribe to the channel, because what happens next is going to shock everyone. Marcus crawled to the back room and dropped through the floor panel into the root cellar. Nolan was there with Kaya, both terrified but silent. He handed Nolan his revolver. "Can you shoot?" She nodded once. "Stay here. Protect Kaya. If anyone comes through that door who isn't me or those warriors, you shoot them." He didn't wait for her response. He was already moving through the cellar to another hidden passage, one even the warriors didn't know about yet. This one led directly to his real workshop, the place where he'd been building something for 3 months. Something he'd hoped never to use. The passage opened into a stone-walled chamber, and there, stacked against the walls, was enough weaponry to arm a small war. Repeating rifles, ammunition, dynamite, even 2 Gatling guns he'd purchased through channels that didn't ask questions. Because Marcus Webb hadn't just been gathering evidence against the slavers. He'd been preparing for war. And when Closen and his warriors reached this chamber through the main tunnel, they were going to find something that shocked them more than anything they'd expected. A white rancher who'd spent 3 months building an arsenal specifically to arm Apache resistance fighters. The tunnel from the barn led straight here. By now, the warriors should be arriving any second. And when they saw what Marcus had prepared, when they understood what he'd really been doing, everything was going to change. Marcus heard movement in the tunnel, voices speaking in rapid Apache. Then Closen emerged into the chamber, followed by the other 6 warriors. They stopped dead, staring at the weapons. Tarak was lost through. He looked at the arsenal, then at Marcus, then at the repeating rifles hung with care on the wall. "Who are you?" Closen asked quietly. "Someone who's been waiting for you," Marcus said. "Garrett's operation runs on firepower and fear. You've been fighting him with knives and stolen rifles. But what if you had the same weapons he did? What if you could hit him so hard he never recovered?" He pulled a sheet off a wall, revealing a detailed map. Red marks indicated Slaver roots. Blue marks showed where families were being held. Green marks identified weapons caches. "I've been tracking Garrett for 3 months," Marcus continued. "Ever since I found one of your women and her daughter left for dead. I knew I couldn't stop him alone. But I also knew that someday, warriors would come looking for him. And when they did, I wanted to make sure you had everything you needed to finish it." Tarak was staring at the map now, his hand still clutching his daughter's toy. "You said found woman with daughter." "She's here," Marcus said. "Upstairs. And before you ask, yes, it's Nolan. And yes, Kaya's alive. I've been hiding them for 3 months, healing them, protecting them, waiting for the right time. The silence that followed was absolute. Then Tarak's legs gave out. He collapsed to his knees, the toy falling from his hands, a sound coming from his chest that was half sob, half prayer. "Where?" he whispered. "Where is she?" "Cellar above us." "But Tarak," Marcus grabbed the warrior's arm before he could run. "Garrett's men are upstairs. 15 of them. They are shooting up my cabin right now trying to get to her. So you can either break down and cry, or you can pick up one of these rifles and help me make sure your wife and daughter survive the next 10 minutes. Tarak's eyes, wet with tears a second ago, went hard as stone. He stood, grabbed a repeating rifle from the wall, and checked the action with movements that spoke of training Marcus hadn't expected. "I was a scout," Tarak said, seeing Marcus's surprise. "Before Garrett burned our village. Before he took everything. I know how to use these." Closen was distributing weapons to his warriors with practiced efficiency. They were arming themselves like men who'd been waiting for exactly this opportunity. "How many men does Garrett have total?" Closen asked. 20 up top right now," Marcus said. "But has got a main camp 5 miles south with another 30. If we don't end this fast, reinforcements come and we're dead. Then we end it fast." Closen checked his rifle, his face transformed from desperate refugee to tactical commander. "Tarak, you and Marcus get to your family. Hold the cellar. The rest of us circle through the tunnel and hit Garrett's men from behind. They think they are hunting trap prey. They are about to learn different." One of the younger warriors, the one who'd been wounded earlier, spoke up. "And after, even if we win, the army comes asking questions. Then we'll make sure the army finds what they need to find," Marcus said. He grabbed the folder of evidence he'd been gathering. "Garrett's dead or dying up there. His men are about to follow. And when federal investigators arrive, they're going to find proof of the whole slaving operation. Names, routes, payments. Everything they need to shut it down permanently." "You would risk that?" Closen studied Marcus, being known as the man who armed Apache warriors. "You would never be safe in white settlements again." "I stopped being safe 3 months ago," Marcus replied. "The moment I chose to save one woman and her child instead of minding my own business. I've been a dead man walking ever since. Might as well die doing something that matters." Closen placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder. "You are brother now. If you survive this day, you ride north with us. Our people will protect you." "First we survive," Marcus said. "Tarak, you ready?" The warrior's face was tight with barely controlled emotion, but his hands were steady on the rifle. "Take me to my family." They moved back through the passage toward the cellar, while Closen and the other 5 warriors headed for the tunnel that would bring them up behind Garrett's men. The sound of gunfire continued above, wood splintering as bullets tore through the cabin. Marcus and Tarak emerged into the root cellar. Nolan stood in the corner, Marcus's revolver held in both hands, pointed at the entrance. When she saw Tarak, the gun dropped from her nerveless fingers. "Tarak!" Her voice broke on the name. He crossed the space between them in 2 strides and caught her as she fell. They collapsed together, Kaya between them, all 3 of them crying and holding each other like they could make up for 6 months of grief in a single embrace. Marcus gave them exactly 10 seconds. Then he grabbed Tarak's shoulder. "I'm sorry, but your family's not safe yet. Garrett's men will find this cellar in minutes. We need to move them deeper into the tunnel system where they can hide while we finish this." Tarak looked up, his face streaked with tears but his eyes burning with new purpose. "No, Nolan and Kaya hide. We fight." He kissed his wife once more, whispered something in Apache, and handed Kaya her toy. Then he picked up his rifle and followed Marcus toward the stairs. Above them, the sound of gunfire suddenly changed. Instead of Garrett's men shooting into the cabin, Marcus heard screams. Heard the distinctive crack of repeating rifles fired in disciplined volleys. Heard men shouting in panic instead of aggression. Closen and his warriors had emerged from the tunnel behind enemy positions. The ambush was working. Marcus burst through the cellar door into his ruined cabin. 3 of Garrett's men lay dead. The others were scattered, trying to understand how they'd been surrounded. Through the shattered windows, Marcus could see warriors moving with tactical precision, each shot deliberate, each movement calculated. This wasn't a desperate fight. This was an execution. The thin, nervous man, Garrett II, saw Marcus and raised his rifle. But before he could fire, Tarak's shot took him in the chest. The slaver dropped, his weapon clattering across the floor. The fight lasted maybe 3 more minutes. Garrett's men had numbers, but the warriors had surprise, superior weapons, and the burning motivation of men fighting to save their families. By the time the sun fully cleared the eastern hills, 15 slavers lay dead across Marcus's property. Garrett himself was still alive, barely, bleeding out on Marcus's cabin floor. Closen stood over him, his rifle pointed at the dying man's head. "You took my sister," Closen said quietly. "Sold her south. She was 12 years old. Do you remember her?" Garrett tried to speak, coughed blood instead. "I did not think so," Closen said. "You took so many, you cannot remember faces. But we remember. Every child, every mother, every father. We remember all of them." He looked at Marcus. "What do we do with him?" Marcus handed Closen the evidence folder. "We'll let him live just long enough to sign a confession. Then we send it to Fort Bliss along with the bodies. Let the territorial marshal explain why 15 armed slavers attacked a ranch and lost. They will ask why you have Apache warriors here. And I'll tell them the truth, that I was gathering evidence against Garrett's operation, that these warriors came seeking refuge, that we defended ourselves when attacked." Marcus looked around at his ruined cabin. "Everything I say will be true, just not the complete truth." From the cellar, Nolan emerged carrying Kaya. The child's eyes were wide, but she wasn't crying anymore. Tarak ran to them, and this time Marcus didn't stop the reunion. Some moments couldn't be rushed. Closen was watching the family embrace with an expression Marcus couldn't read. Finally, the older warrior spoke. "What you have built here," he gestured at the cabin, the hidden armory, everything Marcus had prepared. "This was not just for one family. You are building a station, a place where our people could find weapons, supplies, refuge." Marcus nodded slowly. "I was, and I still am, if you'll let me. Garrett's dead, but his operation had partners. Other men doing the same thing across 3 territories. This doesn't end until we expose all of them." "That will take years," one of the younger warriors said. "Years of fighting." "Then we fight for years," Marcus replied. "What else am I going to do? Go back to pretending I don't see what's happening? Go back to living alone while people die?" Closen studied him for a long moment. Then he reached into his pouch and pulled out a necklace. Intricate beadwork, blue and white patterns that marked it as coming from his family line. "You wear this. Any of our people will know you are protected. Will know you are brother." He placed it over Marcus's head. "And they will know that when they need weapons, need refuge, need help, they can come to this place." Marcus touched the beadwork against his chest. It felt heavier than it should, weighted with meaning he was only beginning to understand. "I need to get Garrett's confession before he dies," Marcus said. "Then we send everything to Fort Bliss. With luck, Major Harrison acts on it and starts shutting down the whole operation. And if he does not?" Closen asked. "Then we make them act." Marcus looked at the 7 warriors, at Nolan and Kaya, at everything they'd fought for. "One way or another, this ends. Even if we have to burn every slaver camp between here and the border to make it happen." 3 days later, federal investigators arrived at Marcus Webb's ranch. They found 15 dead slavers, 1 dying slaver with a signed confession, and evidence of a trafficking operation that reached all the way to Mexico City. Major Harrison himself came from Fort Bliss, took one look at the documentation, and immediately dispatched troops to raid every location Marcus had mapped. Within 2 weeks, 37 men were arrested. Within a month, the slaving operation in the territory collapsed completely. Marcus stood in his rebuilt cabin, watching as Tarak, Nolan, and Kaya prepared to ride north with Closen's band. The family would live with relatives who'd escaped Garrett's raids, somewhere far from the violence that had torn them apart. "Will you come with us?" Tarak asked. "You would be welcome. You would be safe." Marcus touched the necklace at his chest. "Not yet. There's still work to do here. Other families who need help. Other warriors who need weapons. This place," he gestured at his ranch, "it can do more good as a station than as a memory. Nolan hugged him, fists and grateful. Kaya pressed her toy into his hand, then took it back, smiling shyly. Closen gripped his arm in the warrior's farewell. "We will return," the older man promised. "When you have need, when your people have need, we will remember what you did. We will remember who stood with us when no one else would." They rode north as the sun climbed higher, dust trailing behind them. Marcus stood watching until they disappeared over the ridge. Then he walked back into his cabin and began planning. Because Closen was right. This place could be more than just a ranch. It could be a station, a waypoint, an arsenal for people fighting against injustice. It could be the place where desperate warriors found weapons and refuge, where scattered families found shelter and healing. It would be dangerous. It would mark him as an enemy to his own people. He'd never be safe in white settlements again. But he'd stopped being safe 3 months ago when he chose to save one woman and her child instead of looking the other way. Some choices, once made, changed a man forever. Some lines, once crossed, couldn't be uncrossed. Marcus Webb had crossed that line, and he discovered something on the other side that he'd lost years ago when loneliness had turned him into a hermit. Purpose, connection, the sense that his life meant something beyond survival. 7 Apache warriors had come to his ranch seeking refuge. What they found shocked them. A white man who'd built an arsenal specifically to arm their resistance. A brother who'd risk everything to stand with them against evil. But what shocked Marcus more was simpler and deeper. He'd found himself again. Found the man he used to be before grief and isolation had hollowed him out. And now that he'd found that man again, he wasn't letting go.